Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest and greatest diecast live from D6 Damage. Today, we'll be taking your questions as usual, answering all aspects of the game of Pathfinder and Pathfinder 2. So get those questions in chat, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. Today, I'm joined by the irrepressible D12 and the unassailable D8.
Thanks.
I think it was quite appropriate.
Oh, great. Now the two of you are ganging up on me.
So, we have a few questions that we got from the Discord, but I wanted to start us off with a question that I think we all have at least reasonably strong opinions about. How do you feel about the monk class? D12, why don't we start with you?
Well, we have a Space Invader. I like monks. I've always liked the monk class. I think it kind of, at times, it gets overshadowed by different classes in different aspects and different ways. But overall, the monk class is a pretty fun class to have in a party, let alone to play the monk. You don't necessarily fit a particular role, as it were, but you definitely are a great piece on the field.
So, the monk has a decent amount of versatility to it as a class. What role do you think the monk fits well in? Do you prefer it as kind of a striker? Do you prefer the control aspect of the monk? How do you monk?
With me personally, in the beginning they're not really set to be a striker, but by the time you get a couple levels into them, tends to be what most people will end up playing monks as, is either a striker. I've done control monks, but I tend to see strikers as the more popular and easier monk type to do.
I think that the combat maneuver system that Pathfinder gives you can make a control monk absolutely viable, and I really think that's very interesting and something that I have complaints about with things like 5e, where the monk really loses a lot of the control ability. But with such a versatile combat maneuver system, I think you absolutely can do a really fun character who's all about just tripping and grappling and things, just to keep people, out to use all of their actions to not to fight, because they have to deal with you while your party picks them apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The best reason to having a monk in your party is if you know there's going to be a spellcaster, because they tend to have the highest possibility of getting to him and keeping the spellcaster occupied the longest without having to deal with most of the bull that other classes will, just trying to get to him, let alone dealing with him.
Mm-hmm. I think between the combat maneuvers and the stunning fist and the extra movement, I think you have a character that's absolutely capable of getting where he needs to be and then tying up people while your party is, capable of doing other things.
Yep.
That's true.
And that's how at least 3.5 and Pathfinder 1 monks were designed, with that in mind. It's just they're optimized for single target DPS, but they can also do just straight control on one or multiple people, depending on how you build it. And personally, I like the control monks over the damage monks, but,
I like the idea of the control monk, and I really like it if they're in the party, but I don't think I could ever play one. Mm-hmm. I don't have the patience for it.
Sorry.
So I guess the last part of the question I have for D12 is, RP-wise, what do you like to do for the monk? Like, what makes the monk fun to RP for you?
Honestly, I've had monks of all different shapes and varieties. I've had monks that were literally just kind of like street thugs. So their reason for trying to train their body to be the best is so that way they can't get beat up by others anymore.
Yes, the way of the smash and grab.
Yeah, I've had the monk that was the traditional. I'm from a monastery. I've been trained properly and all that. And I've also done a couple of monks, one of which was sinewered off of the kind of like the way of the warrior kind of thing, where he started off as this delinquent and then gets in a fight with someone who was more powerful than him and taught him, hey, if you train, you could be something. And he, found that path.
Did he have a pompadour?
No, but that would have been a really interesting moment, Hattie.
It feels like, the delinquent character. Gotta have a pompadour.
All right, let's throw it over to D8. So, what are your feelings on the monk?
I love the monk. I think it's a great class. I love its versatility. I love its ability to get in and be a striker. My only complaints with it is I feel it is a fairly complicated class in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the patience to pay attention long enough to really master the class.
What's your feeling on Flurry of Blows?
In Pathfinder 1, the Unchained Monk, it's very good, and I think they balanced it fairly well. In Pathfinder 2, in the playtest, it was extremely powerful, but then in the actual game, when we were running it, the reduction to your attacks to hit makes it really a flurry of misses most of the time. And that bothered me, because it seemed like, perhaps it was too powerful when it was in the playtest, but I feel like the reduction to the to hit is just too much on Pathfinder 2.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you've played a monk, did you go with weapon monk, or did you rely more on the unarmed strikes?
I prefer to go with the unarmed strikes, mainly because none of the monk weapons are ones I like. So that kind of cuts me out. I wish there was a way to make more weapons monk weapons. Mm-hmm. Like in like an archetype or something that allows you to... There's a cool human archetype that gives you proficiency in one exotic weapon, but it doesn't count that weapon as a monk weapon. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool, but... like, I can't utilize it. So no, I prefer... My favorite monk archetype is the martial artist, because I don't personally like to roleplay the super spiritual side of the monk. So the martial artist gets away with all the... It throws the key away, and instead you just get reach out and break someone abilities.
Okay, so that kind of leads into the last part of the question. How do you RP a monk, and how do you make it fun for you? So you lean more on the brawler, the purely physical side of the monk.
Yeah. So, for those of you who haven't read it, there is a fantastic series out there by R.A. Salvatore that I think is much better than his Drizzt novels, but is very, very much overshadowed, called the Cleric Quintet. And it's 5 books, and he really wanted to write a book about a monk, and they told him to write one about a cleric. And he was a little upset, so he put a monk character in it, and that character is very much, like, when they describe the combat scenes and things, like, her whole idea is to reach out and break someone, and I think that is so much more interesting to me than the spiritual side of it. So yeah, I prefer the character who has extreme competence rather than spiritual control over their body.
Mm-hmm. Let's throw it over to D3. You've played a monk at least once. How do you feel about the monk?
Well, not to repeat what everyone said here, because it's a whole, it's very good points, but I personally like the monk. I am kind of the more, well, sort of unlike D6. Unlike D8. Sorry, getting off my own thoughts here, but D8, I guess I do appreciate the more spiritual aspect to it. I think it not just by the risk of sounding quintessential, there's a lot of things in, like, I guess you would say monk culture, but in reality, it's religions that most people attribute to monks right there that I think there's a lot of deep aspects to it, and very interesting. It's not just in how they approach things in life, from one monk, something like Buddhist monks and many other ones like that, but also how they go about finding the goals in life and like enlightenment and such. So, personally, I like the monk myself too. Although I do have to also agree with playtesting Pathfinder 2 as far as the flurry of blows, as D8 rightfully said, it seems like a flurry of misses when for someone who's trained as like a monk or maybe some basic training, you think he wouldn't miss that much, or they wouldn't miss that much. Sorry.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. You, as a player, tend to fall a little more on the support or the tank side. How do you make the monk work with that style? Or do you just find a new thing to do with the monk?
Well, I guess for the tank and support style of my own, and it's kind of a prevailing theme in the characters I do play in by my own admission, but I guess it also depends on the mentality, because I guess it's just like most of the things, most of the characters, there is a way to make character the way you want to play it, but it's also how you build it. For me, it's much less how I build the monk than more the mentality. Example, when I last played monk, as part of the story, he was someone trying to be helpful, trying to be helpful, trying to support people, because in his past life before he kicked in the last conquest he tried, right? He had to rethink his entire life. So the way I did it, and the strategy I used was sorry, I'm gonna trip now on my own words, but for lack of a better word, the preventer and the interceptor. And by that I mean he would rush into a fight and try to weaken or knock out the majority of the enemies, if not the biggest bad right there. Knock them out so the party can help them. Afterwards, healing them for anyone else, because that was as far as mentality, as far as how you went about being a monk and trying to find his best self and help out the party as best he can. So, I guess the way I play the monk was also to address one thing about like support players and such. Well, I do enjoy the support and tank players. I think one thing many support and tanky players would attest to is not so much just being there for the party helping them out, but also contributing to the DPS effort. So when I played monk, that's what the mindset I was going for. Help the team out, but also don't just be the sideline medic, but wail on some guys if you can, or at least as much as Flare Bows would let you wail on some guys.
Mm-hmm. When I play monk, I am a big fan of more the control style monk. I'm a huge fan of the stunning fist. Also, I love the ways that you can use things like the key points, either to give you extra attacks, to boost to AC that you can give yourself. Key points are really just a fantastic system. When I build a monk, I tend to prioritize getting as much key as possible. And to make it fun for myself, and kind of the monks that I tend to RP tend to be all about kind of not even the spiritual, but just the esoteric bullshit of the monk. I'm a big fan of the occult adventures and I think it's the serpent energy that you can do to give yourself even more abilities when you go like full like super monk on people. We have kind of an interesting question in chat. How do you guys balance AC and to hit between martial and casters as a GM or even as a player? Would anyone like to start us off with that, or should I?
I'll stumble onto it first. I think as a GM, you kind of have to look at what your party wants to do, and then gauge and adjust based on that, because certain monsters are supposed to be hard to hit while some are supposed to be easier to hit, and some of your party members are going to be like built properly, or some of your party is going to be built to actually hit, and others of your party aren't going to really be built for that. And then you have to decide based on what monsters you're going to put in your campaign, or evildoers you're going to have them fight, how are they going to adjust accordingly? You know, you could have everybody in really flashy stuff, like look pretty, but be weak. So that way they're getting a bunch of money and can adjust, and you can adjust accordingly. But I think typically what I try to do when it comes to challenge rating and or parties hit and to hit and being hit is I look at the average member of the party that is trying to do damage and what the monster in the area, whether that be person or beast, is supposed to be doing. And if my story indicates that the monster is supposed to be, supposed to be able to hit well, then I will give them a better to hit if my party has good AC. But if my party is supposed to be built for blocking or just absorbing as much damage as possible, then I won't have as many powerful, or I won't have as many weak creatures. I'll have more powerful creatures, so that way the ones that do hit do damage, but most of them are going to miss, kind of thing.
All right, why don't we throw that one over to our sort of reluctant DM, D8.
Thanks. So, I guess I only have two things to say about this. When I DM, I really like the Lord of the Rings flavor of having a fuck ton of enemies. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't curse. Having a butt ton of enemies and have them go down fairly easily. Because I viscerally like the large amount of bodies on the field. So generally, what I
roll, right?
I'm a huge. That's one of the few things out of 4th edition I thought was fantastic. Where, and for those of you who didn't play that, that's fine. You didn't really miss out. The minion rule was you had a class of creature that had the normal to hit, the normal damage, and the normal AC of a creature, but only had 1 hit point, and would go down in any hits. But any misses or any save for half things, it would stay up. So those are, I really like that because I really like having a massive amount of people fighting my party. So generally, what I do is I don't require my enemies to have very high AC, especially since my players normally have milked the to hit as far as they can. So it's kind of pointless to make them have a huge AC. But I generally have their hit, pretty solid in the mid range, so that they can get hits off on the party. The only other things I have to say on this is that I think one of my biggest complaints with Pathfinder 1, and I don't remember how spellcasting worked in Pathfinder 2 because I didn't play a spellcaster in it, and it's been so long. But my big complaint was, having spells rely on your dexterity to hit. And my problem with that was simply because it made certain classes like the Arcanist so incredibly ability dependent. Like, if you were a wizard or a sorcerer, you needed to not only have a high, casting modifier, but you also needed to have a high dexterity modifier in order to hit, but you also needed to have, enough constitution that you could not die in 1 hit. And then you throw in things like the Arcanist, which now you have intelligence and charisma as casting modifiers, and oh great, now I need 4 ability points that are high enough. So it kind of, in my opinion, takes away from a lot of the usefulness of the spells that have to hits, and really kind of, I think that's really why Fireball is so desirable, is because you don't need to have any other ability point but your casting modifier. So I think Pathfinder made a mistake there by kind of having the casters be a little bit kind of reliant on having dexterity when it doesn't always make sense.
So you think you're more like how 5e does it, where your to hit is governed by your casting modifier as well?
I don't know if it's better, but I think it is more fair, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because I mean there is problems with that too, because it makes casters extremely powerful. But on the other hand, it's really frustrating to use a whole spell slot to cast Scorching Ray and then not be able to hit. Because you already don't have a base attack bonus. So you're really just relying on your dexterity.
Yeah.
So I think with Pathfinder, when they already have the base attack bonus in there, which makes it difficult, like it reduces your caster's ability to hit anyway, that's fine if they had a ability modifier that still gave them something. But by making it, especially when you consider that you're supposed to be playing with the point buy system or the standard roll system, where you don't have very much in the way of ability points.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to me to see that, because it means you basically have very little more than just a straight die roll to see if you hit.
Mm-hmm.
And with creatures that have increasing AC, well, that's really frustrating.
All right, D3, how do you feel? You're not really a DM, so you don't need to worry about it from that perspective, but what are your thoughts on balancing AC into hit?
Well, I think part of it is slightly down to the player and slightly down to I guess you can say from a DM standpoint, if I had to give my best estimation on that, is I guess one part of what I guess the best way I can put this, I'm just trying to find the best words for this, but I guess between what the players want to do and their character concepts and anything else in the story, the best thing to do is try to put the best encounters you can do it towards thematic the story, but I guess I was also in part of that story where they are in the instance there too. I mean, it does feel good to sort of get the players involved and let them be part of that story where they feel like they want to go on this adventure and such. But then once I feel like they can just fight a horde of enemies and just softballing it to them. So I guess for a DM, it's much more what fits best in the moment there too. And like I said before in another cast a while back, but also also in the first part of the story, what are your expectations for them? What do you want them to feel? Do you have any hints about this part of the story? Oh yeah, it's going to be this little heist that it's going to be just a couple jobs, just a couple guards, but then the big bad shows up. And as far as their AC versus the AC, what do you want to happen? Do you want them just to face it there too? Is it stubbornness test? Who's stubborn enough to try to face this big bad and get their face punched in, and while everyone else just runs away? I feel it's a careful balance that the DM should mind, but also this same token, if done well, you can be able to throw high AC difficulty monster at these guys, and either let them survive long enough to live and tell the tale, and just get revved up for another chance at another crack at taking it down, or is it just also be the ever thematic and slightly cliche unbeatable boss? You get knocked out, but you wake up sometime later in X location.
Okay, so you've basically got, one of the truest answers, but also one of the most difficult to implement of it's situational. Like in certain situations, AC.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks for
that. My personal opinion on this one is one of the things you have to factor in is the real life experience points of the party that you're playing with. So if you've got, and one of the hardest things to balance for is a party that has both veteran players and new players that can make it... Hang on for 1 second.
Done. Yeah, I see what he's talking about there.
Okay, so it looks like the situation has resolved itself. Anyway, real life experience points of the party. So if you've got veteran players and new players, then you might want to make some kind of soft adjustments to certain monsters' AC, because the newbies are not going to be able to hit nearly as well, just because they don't necessarily know what they're doing. They don't know how to maximize what they're trying to do, versus the vets who are going to be able to handle themselves in a situation kind of no matter what happens. you know.
Exactly. I think one thing though. Now I can think about it, and you've given that person the good, pretty good, the awesome perspective of yours. Is as far as the new players, what if you make it to where okay, they're not really more experienced as far as combat and such, but what are their greatest attributes in the situation? Maybe Steven could throw that in there. Like a veteran paladin throws himself at the big bad, and because their swords are broken because they crashed into so many enemies, they resort to a holy versus unholy fist fight. But the new player, who's a newbie rogue, it's good perception. He started. Oh, sorry. They start noticing some aspects of the boss there too. The paladin, wails on this big bad, and as he's doing it, the newbie rogue that's more perception orientated notices as the paladin's punching, the big bads get the situation regardless of AC, the game of AC versus hit points, anything else like that. As much as I do find it fun to have a pretty, on a mission, have a pretty decent AC and that blows you the deflector not even hit you at all. The same token, it can be frustrating. Like, okay, the one was like, okay, I've got this attack, it lands, here's the damage. Oh, but he has this AC, so I guess a good workaround is in the moment, not just within the two people in the fight, or the people in the fight, but the people outside the fight, and the rest of the party. What can you I guess also to draw them, what could you add on to that as well? What other attributes can you include in that instance too, to not only feel like they're involved in the fight, though they're not actually fighting, but also in that instance, what can they really contribute? Because even for someone, as I said before, as someone as a support player, if I feel I can contribute to a part of the campaign, fight or otherwise, that's a big thing for me. And I guess for a lot of people, even regardless of the greatest fighters or not, or actual fighters for that instance, if they feel they can contribute something regardless, that'd be a big thing for them.
Yes, it's important for all the players to feel like they've done something, because no one wants to feel like they're second banana. No one wants to be the Ringo of your group. We have a great question from our DM Doomboy from the Carrion Crown, who's with us in spirit, even though he couldn't actually be here. He wonders, what is your favorite fight in the Carrion Crown so far? D8, what do you think?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was from Doomboy. He was wondering, what was your favorite fight in the Carrion Crown so far?
Probably the Lopper. We haven't really had many fights. And with so many party members, we kind of annihilate them so quickly, it's a little underwhelming sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lopper was nice because I got to actually do something. It's hard playing a character who doesn't fight. I'm happy I challenged myself with it, but it is very hard.
Well, challenging yourself is an important thing to do. It's the only way you grow. How did you feel about... I liked what you were trying to do with the fight against the mosquitoes and the scourges. It didn't entirely work just because they hit too hard, but...
Oh my god, they hit so hard.
Yeah, I know.
D12, what do you think?
I don't really have a favorite fight yet. There have been some memorable moments, but I don't have a favorite fight yet. I definitely enjoyed the Sturge fight. That was actually quite entertaining. The Lopper fight was probably one of the better fights that we've had to this point.
I really enjoyed your battle with that door going into the vault. That was
I thought for sure that the door would heed my call, but no.
Hey man, we got +1 axe out of it. It was worth it.
Right?
Yep.
Apparently there was a good reason to have a barricaded door.
What do you think, D3?
Well, for what's worth, I did like a lot of things in the Carrion Crown so far.
You sound like you're underwater.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Anyways, I guess perhaps one of the best fights we have the Cleric Quintet, or at least the most memorable for me, and it may seem kind of odd because, yeah, my character basically got cooked in that fight, is our fight against the Ember Maw, as far as that. Just how that went, and I guess for me, in the instance, just the thing surprise and trying my best to even survive that thing too, and then Deacon comes in, he tries his best with it, but then the real thing is how...
I don't know what you're talking about. It totally worked out great for me. My plan was perfect.
Oh, yes, but you also the force to have Gregory come in at the last minute. Very, very good. Very wise move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a memorable fight for what it's worth, because, well, again, odd for me to say in hindsight, because, yeah, Rigel almost got charbroiled, but it's much more so how the fight also was described in detail, and how Doomboy panned everything, and even Gregory's moment, and as much as it does shake my butt a bit as far as that, even Cypher's coming in going, "What have you learned?" The smug expression on his face after essentially letting Rigel rest in the plate like a cooked steak. So how everyone handled that too was really good as well. And even if Cyphers is like, "Well, this is going bad. I'm gonna help out here." A positive pulse, and now that just basically douse the fight a bit as if he came in with a bucket of holy water.
I'm not capable of helping.
He did help a bit there too, but I was like, okay, it's going on for Cyphers coming, positive pulse, bucket of holy water.
So I don't want to sound like I'm trying to immortalize Doomboy's failures, because I don't think of the Lopper fight as a failure. I think of it legitimately as being the best fight. Now, part of that is because the fight did play to the party's strengths. We had time to build ourselves up to the degree that we could just basically steamroll the guy. But that being said, I thought that I liked the fact that he could, disappear around the battlefield. It made it very tense. And it goes to show you that not every fight needs to be, two groups or charging at each other, or a group taking on a big old monster and things going down. I think it worked well with the Carrion Crown because it is a slower paced, sort of tense fight where it almost felt like one of the bug hunts from Alien in a way. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking that was why I had Jack get up on the wall, start sliding around with the bow. I was sitting there going, "You can only hide for so long, little bug."
I thought what I liked about it was the fact that we all got to do what our characters were designed to do. And even if it was only for like a single or two rounds, that was just simply because we got some dumb luck.
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't like the fight was completely pointless or anything. It was simply we got extremely lucky, and we all got to show off what our characters are supposed to be able to do.
Exactly. Thus, I don't really consider the fight a failure as far as Doom cards. It's just a bit of dumb luck because, as far as as far as the Whopper psychology and everything else like that, we were ready for a long haul there too. Cyclus was prepping the party and was like, okay, this is basically essentially the hunting predator of the Michael the Hero Stone 5 as far as that. So yeah, we're all prepared for it. And so this is before when we had a roundtable after the fact. But as far as Rigel's own psychology, the reason he went for too was not just because he wanted to keep the party safe, but his mindset was, okay, as far as the argument between Cyphus and himself over the paper and what the haunt of the Hero Stone was trying to tell, to Rigel's mind it was just like, yeah, I'm going to go in there, and whether I like it or not, the Whopper singled me out as his target. So what's going to keep the party safe and then drop the Whopper is to basically go over there and essentially, be a worm on the hook as far as that too. So, and I was ready for a long haul, thinking all the week before the fight, Rigel was going to die in that fight. Was which one? Okay, what can I do here? What are my options here? Just mathematically as well. No. Yeah.
You okay, buddy? Whoops.
Yeah.
We're having some connectivity issues here. D12, are you with us?
Yeah, I was just pop in and pop out. For some reason, my thing had to reset.
Huh.
Yeah,
Weird.
it happens too. Yeah, but the fish fight thought, I don't, I guess a long story short, I don't consider the fight with the Whopper, any kind of failure, but as the rightfully said, just a bit of dumb luck. I mean, I knew Smite was powerful, but when Gore got that roll, yeah, just like, okay, that happened. But, yeah, as far as my own in the fight, just to speak for myself in that instance, too, everyone's trying to do their own thing. And rightfully so, because we're just trying to cover corners, and essentially it's like a couple, I don't know, a couple of guard dogs versus a wolf in that instance. But, yeah, I'm guessing if things turned out differently, it would have been a more drawn-out battle, and, yeah, but not to be that guy, but I was expecting Rigel to die in that instance. But I guess it was just much more of a, well, this happened because the dice will if it such. Just give it, take it away. But all that means is now Doomboy has more than enough motivation to make the rest of the Heralds if I take notice. And I guess thematically speaking, too, it's not really a failure because as far as, like, the psychology of the Heralds fight, of course the Lopper...
Anyway, the moral of the story is that the Lopper was a great fight, and we all had a good time.
Yes.
So, next question is, what are some of your favorite enchantments for weapons? D8, do you have any?
Oh, yeah. Vicious. I love the Vicious enchantment. That's my jam.
For those who aren't aware, what does the Vicious enchantment do?
Vicious adds an extra 2d6 to your damage, but does an additional 1d6 to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really good fair trade. Especially since you can make... you can pair it with things like Vampiric, Greater Vampiric. Though I think Vicious is a +2 enchantment. And Greater Vampiric is a +2 or a +3 or something. But, paired together, they work extremely well.
And what does the Vampiric enchantment do?
So Greater Vampiric... Regular Vampiric isn't worth a damn. Don't bother with it. But Greater Vampiric gives you something like a pool of healing that's something like 5 times your level, 5 times something. Oh, let me look it up because I don't remember. It's so long since I had such a powerful weapon. Greater Vampiric, here we go. Yeah, it's 5 hit points per hit die of the wielder, as opposed to Vampiric's 2 hit points per hit die.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is per day. So if you're a level 10, you have 50 heal points that you can use that you get whenever you smack somebody. You can heal up to half of the damage you deal.
Okay.
So you slap those
weapon,
2.
Yeah, so you've got this weapon that is slowly killing you, but it's also sustaining you.
Yeah, so you slap those 2 together, or either one of them are fantastic. I love them both. But you slap those 2 together, and you have a massive amount of damage dealt, plus the ability to stay in the fight for longer.
I'm seeing visions of a sort of a Soul Reaver-esque weapon.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yep. What about
I also
you?
like.
Oh, sorry.
I also like the Thundering Burst one, or whichever one that does sonic damage. It's the Icy Burst / Fire Burst equivalent of it.
Oh yeah. Thundering, isn't it?
Yeah, let's look it up.
Well, he's doing that. D12. Do you have any favorites?
I'm always been partial to Brilliant Energy. I've loved the decapitation on crit effect.
So you like
that that Vorpal applies, and then honestly, I think one of my favorite old timey ones was back in version 1 was the I think it was Silencing.
Oh yeah,
That was one of my favorites.
What are your feelings on Impact?
Impact is great. I love bludgeoning weapons. I love bludgeoning enchantments. It's like, to me, Impact had that feeling of it has a fit, and it fits perfectly fine as long as you're using an impact weapon, or as long as your plan is to reposition people. If your plan is to do damage, Impact wasn't as good, but it still did. I mean, it still did work because it was a +2 enchantment. So.
Oh wait, hang on. According to the set here, it does damage as if it was one size category larger, and in addition, you can do a bull rush combat maneuver.
Mm-hmm. That's why I love it.
And I don't see anything about it needing to be a blunt weapon. Because didn't we do like an impacting rapier at one point?
It has to be
yes.
weapon.
No, it just has to be a melee weapon that's not light.
Yeah, it had to be a non-light. I thought it had to be a blunt one, but yeah, no, you could do it with a... Huh. That's right. I think I did that with something then. Yeah, I did that with my hammer.
Yeah.
Which was
I gotta say, though,
having...
silencing is fantastic.
Yeah, I love silencing. It's one of my faves.
Yeah, silencing, for those of you guys who are not currently looking it up, it becomes harder to hear the wielder, and perception checks to hear the sound of battle increase from -10 to 10. So that's nuts. That's a 20-point difference. And on top of that, when you confirm a critical hit with it, you encase the target in magical silence, which moves with them, which lasts a number of rounds equal to the critical modifier.
Mm-hmm.
So a minimum of 2. And the save increases by 2 for each critical multiplier of the weapon higher than 2. So it becomes harder to negate that magical silence, the nastier a weapon you have. So if you were to slap that on a gun... You silence the gun so people can't hear it, which takes away one of the big problems of a gun. And on top of that, you have the ×4 critical. So you have a silence with a DC of 17. Holy moly. Which lasts 4 rounds if you crit on somebody. Frankly, it'd be worth it just for the silencing of the gun. It doesn't even, like, even without the critical hit bonus, I think silence is great.
Yeah, but the only problem for people on the receiving end of the gun, but not for the guys firing it.
Yeah.
Effectively turning a gun there too, to effectively sending a sniper rifle.
Buddy D3, your effectiveness in comms has dropped to less than 5%.
It was really good at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me step out for a minute.
Yeah, step out for a second.
Right.
Anyway, Thundering is the one that, on a crit you do an extra D8, and you can deafen them. But it's only a +1, which is what I like.
A couple of enchantments I really like. One for just sheer versatility is I'm a big fan of Bane.
Mm-hmm.
It requires some forethought, but it is very effective if you can manage to match what you're fighting with your Bane enchantment. So that makes things like the Occultist is really good for being able to add Bane to the weapon. The Magus, similarly, that is a big advantage that you can have.
I'll agree. Bane is definitely one of the nicer ones out there. I like it, but it does require... It almost requires either forethought or communication, or at least knowledge of what the campaign scenario is going to be, because if you Bane a weapon and then you move to a different area with a different scenario, you've just...
Mm-hmm. The Inquisitor. That's
You've
another
just
really good one.
given yourself a leg up and a crippled yourself.
I like Leg Breaker.
Inquisitor's built for it.
Leg Breaker is a +2 that whenever you hit somebody, you reduce their speed by 10 for 1d4 rounds. And on top of that, if you crit, you get a free trip. But it can only be placed on bludgeoning weapons, which is a little sad. But I do like the idea of slowing people down. So you play you play a character that gets combat expertise. I think it's the feat that gives you a bunch of opportunity attacks, and then you kind of just go in the center, and then you go nope.
We have a pretty good comment in chat. I think Mercy is an underrated enchantment.
It is.
Yeah. Why would I not want to kill something though?
That's fair. That is the ideological dilemma there.
There's a lot more. They added a bunch of weapon enchantments.
Oh yeah,
since the last time I looked.
That list has increased with what was it? One of the last, what was it? 3 books that they put out for first edition before second came out. That list increased by a lot.
For certain types of characters, I'm a huge fan of an enchantment called Conductive. That allows you to basically add a spell-like or supernatural ability and treat it as a melee or ranged touch attack with the weapon. One of my favorites is putting that on a gun with, I think, a cleric or a paladin with a conductive gun, so you could shoot your lay on hands at undead. That's a great use of it. Magus with the pool strike is another really fun thing to do with it.
You would almost be classified as cruel with that last one, sir. Let me. Oh man, hold on. Archives. There we go.
Well, what can I say? We have to have a roll spells option, don't we?
D3. What enchantments do you like?
Well, granted, granted, I haven't been playing as much as with the Magus, but on the spellcasting classes as I ought to. Magus is my first foray, but so far a lot of things a lot of enchantments you guys propose are actually pretty good. In fact, I was looking at Vampiric as far as when I was first building my character for the Carrying Crown, as far as what could be good options for enchanting my weapon. Although I don't know how people are going to take it if I enchant my weapon with Vampiric and we have a paladin on a party. They're going to take it. But
Vampiric is sort of poorly named.
It's necromancy, not necromancy.
Yeah, it's necromancy.
It's necromancy.
Necromancy.
And that party's looking at me going, I failed to see the difference. Fox Hammerman's gun. Anyways, but I like all the options you guys have shown there too, and I'd love to give my own thing there too.
Oh man, you know what we forgot to mention?
What?
What's that?
The best ability of them all. Keen.
Oh.
How could we forget Keen?
The number one
it's
ability
cheap.
Picked up by adventurers.
Yeah, it's cheap, it's good, and if you really can't afford it, you can just take improved critical. But for those of us that are having difficulty getting to the improved critical feat, from lack of feats and whatnot, Keen is... I can't believe we didn't mention Keen as our number one.
I'm trying to remember which one it was that let me transform my weapon, because I know it was one of the enchantments. And that one was probably one of the...
No, it's not versatile. Well, it might be. Let's look.
I don't think it was versatile. Now to see if I can even find it.
No, I think it's glamored.
No, because glamour just made it look different, didn't it? Like, physically look different, but it was still the same.
Oh, you're right. It retains all the properties.
Yeah. The one I had actually straight... wait. It might have been transformative.
That sounds right. It's good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's transformative. So,
yeah, that was the one. That one's entertaining as all get out. That one has 1,000,001 uses.
That's one of the few that has a flat price.
Yep.
Rather than
which means you can pay and add it onto any melee weapon.
Another good
10K.
question from chat. Any fun race class combos you've played? I'm sure we all have at least a little story for that.
Ooh, let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So 3, 6, 8, and then I'll go.
All right, take it away, D3.
Race class combos?
Yeah.
I see. Admittedly, I haven't had much experience in that, so I'd love to contribute something here, but I don't have much experience as far as playing that or anything of the sort.
So have you seen or heard one that became your favorite?
Admittedly, no. I guess more the former, as in I've heard of him, versus the latter is my favorite, and I am interested now. You've caught my interest in that. So just to clarify, it's a combo with an encounter with a wraith, or you somehow get wraith abilities?
No. We're just talking about a character that you thought the race and the class went together in an interesting way, or you liked it, or you had fun with it.
That. No. That, yeah. So I thought you said wraith on it for some reason, like in the enemy type. But let's see. Admittedly, I guess one of the most interesting combos for me would be ones that almost fit thematically versus most anything else, like most anything else that you would come to expect. Like, well, I think there's the alchemist, artificer, gnome. Considering that gnomes pretty much a big part of their life to basically travel the world and see as much as they can. I think that's a pretty good one. Essentially, have Bella's father from Beauty and the Beast as in the form of gnome, just tinkering, just random things there too, and trying to give an adventure that comes to their mind. That's a good one as far as that. So, I guess not to give an overly general answer, but I think a kind of good class race combo would be one that would it's not just part of your character story, but also complements it a bit. Mm-hmm. So, gnome artificer. I guess another one interesting there too. Do we get to play as something like the Tiefling Paladin or something like Tiefling War Priest, Oracle, or something like that. Something you quintessentially think, just could be evil, but trying to defy expectations. And this, from a thematic and player standpoint, would be the sort of thing. It's like, how would you approach this thing where it's like you're trying to have your best to be the exception to the rule, not the rule itself, but everyone else looks down upon you. And
so you're fond of sort of those more avant-garde combinations, or the ones that allow you to see a race that might be thought of as bestial or outright evil in kind of a new light. You did play that half-orc monk, and I thought you did a really cool job with that.
No, thanks. Well, yeah, exactly that. But I guess it's just more. It's not just avant-garde, but a chance for the players to get another perspective on this, and it's also more interesting just as much as how they approach that. So, yeah, the same thing. I remember all enough about mindset when I play Monk, for instance, but that's, like I said, that's one example. Someone trying to be better in that instance too, because no matter what race you are or walk of life you are in that instance too, everyone's got a story on that. Everyone's got at least some source of interesting to tell in that perspective in their own lives. And, just like people, it's not all the stories are going to be the same way or have the same outcome as far as what they come to expect. So I kind of leave up to the players there too. Maybe they can make it great. I mean, heck, you can even go with the classic combo human fighter and have a great story on that too. Mm-hmm. The human fighter that was once a gambler, but was thrown to the gladiator pit because one who made bad dice rolls on his end. Let's hope that trend doesn't continue on when he's going to the Coliseum.
For me, I've had a lot of fun with Ifrits. I've done two that I really enjoyed. One was a sorcerer Ifrit, and I went with the Wishcrafter archetype, which is really fun because other players can give you a bonus if you cast a spell and they make a wish that somehow involves the spell, and that increases the caster level. This was also very similar to another Ifrit that I played that was also all about manipulating the caster level, and that was an Ifrit Oracle of the Fire Mystery. And he was a lot of fun to play, massive amount of firepower, just fireball after fireball. We fought a bunch of trolls one time, and I was very happy to do that. As for some others, anything involving Kitsune and enchantment will work out. Will work out pretty good and be a lot of fun. It also gives you some kind of fun things to RP just because of the nature of the class and how anime you're willing to get with it. Also, I find that I get a lot of use out of elves, partly because they are just kind of good for the types of characters that I like to play, but also I find that the race has a lot of interesting nuances to it. You don't need to play them as just, we're a bunch of tree huggers and we live out in the woods and, we shoot bows and stuff. You could do some stuff by going with some of the more sinister aspects of the elves or some of the more otherworldly aspects. At least that's what I like to bring out of them. All right, D8, on to you.
All right, I'm going to share some character ideas here, and I expect to be credited with them if you use them.
Blackmail.
Let's start with the Dread Captain Stranglebeard.
Now that one's not entirely your idea, and you know it.
Well, okay, but we all worked on the Dread Captain Stranglebeard. And we still haven't even gotten the damn combination to work perfectly.
I know, right? We still can't get it
It's
right.
because it involves
But the idea is really good. The idea is a dwarven white witch pirate who strangles people with his beard. Hair witch strangles people with his beard. And he has his familiar is a crab named Pierre, the Vice Admiral Pierre. And the problem we've had with it is getting, it's really tough to make the white-haired witch fit with the feats you kind of need to go with a grapple build. That was the main trouble we were having with it. But I really, really liked the idea, the dwarf witch who strangles people with his beard. Then we have another character named Pierre, Jean-Luc Pierre, the Gripply swashbuckler, who is convinced that women love him, and so he hits on women of every race. And the Gripplies are actually really good for it too, because you can take things like Princely or whatever that gives you rapier bonuses, and then other stuff for it too. So it's a surprisingly effective build. But the whole idea was to have like a Three Musketeer style Gripply who just tries to romance everyone.
So a little
but
D'Artagnan,
no one wants
Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah, but nobody wants to romance him because he's a freaking frog. So,
A 2-foot tall frog.
So it's like it'll never work, and it's not supposed to work. But you go with the oh god, what was the Swordmaster archetype for the swashbuckler? The one that allows you to give your intelligence to your panache, but sticks you to the rapier.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. So you get like mad bonuses to your rapier damage, but you can't get panache back by any other way than using rapiers. So you go with that. What else do I got? I love Tiefling. I love Tiefling with anything, because if your DM is allowing you to have full reign of the Tiefling, where you can kind of pick the pieces of the things. Same with Asimar. I think one of my favorite characters we ever did was one of D6's who was an Asimar of the bird grouping.
Yeah. The avian ones.
Yeah, I really like that ability with the Asimar and the Tiefling, where you can kind of pick your background. And the Tiefling I really like because you can actually pick from this list of like variant abilities or pieces of you, where your arms are different, alternative physical features and stuff. And I really, really like that.
It's the Inspired Blade, by the way.
Inspired Blade, that's what it was. Thank you. And with Tiefling and Asimar, you can do just about anything. With Asimar, anything where wings are helpful. I did a Vengeful Hunter fighter build with an ASMR that was extremely fun. And then my Tiefling Blood Rager was also one of my favorite characters ever. Everything else is like, I love lizard folk. I really want to play a lizard folk. I haven't found a class that I super want to do lizard folk with yet, but I will take the opportunity at any time to play a lizard folk.
All right, D12, what do you say?
Yeah, I like
One last one.
Go for it.
Sorry. The Leshy Monk.
Oh, you jerk.
Yeah, salad fingers. I went. It was a Leshy Monk that went the Serpent Style, and he had little root fingers, and he would stick them in you because Serpent Style gives you piercing damage.
And D8 does love to see the red water come out.
Let's see. When you look at it, I think my favorite like race class combination kind of stuff are I love my short guys or girls actually with my spellcasters, preferably wizard over sorc, but any of the casters will do. And just something short with a caster because it won't affect my damage and I can get into places that I normally wouldn't as a regular sized or larger creature. As a tall person myself, it makes it more fun to try to imagine life, low to the ground,
I will say, D12, your gnomes can really embody the more anarchic and violently whimsical aspects of the Fae. So
yeah,
good job
well,
with that.
I tend to, I think if I had to pick a race that is probably the one that I'm most in tune with, it's gnome and goblin. Those two, it's one opposite sides of the coin. One's the civilized version and the other is the uncivilized.
Well, now you're giving me flashbacks to goblins versus gnomes, like the best Hearthstone expansion they ever did.
Good times. I think my favorite class, sadly, is Druid. Although it's not really a sadly thing. It's Druid and up till I think, actually, even up to now, Druid has always just been that class that gives you a little bit of everything. And if you feat properly, you can specialize and just destroy in whatever aspect you want to destroy in, whether that's summoning creatures, spells yourself, healing, or shifting and becoming a powerhouse your own self. It really was the class that kind of hit all the bells and whistles for me. It kind of was like, hey, I want to do this. Well, hey, I can make my druid do this and just pick a race. Hey, I want to do that. Hey, let's get a druid and pick a different race.
You've done a lot of interesting things with dwarves.
Yeah. I probably well, actually, let's see. How many classes have I played with the dwarf? 1, 2, 3.
I wasn't Pathfinder,
4.
but you did that dwarf druid in Curse of Strahd.
Right. So I had the dwarf druid. I've done dwarf cleric. I've done dwarf bard. I've done dwarf barbarian. I've done dwarf. Have I done a? No, I've done a rogue. I've done a dwarf samurai, and I've done a dwarf wizard. No,
dwarf
3
fighter,
dwarf wizards.
The mutagen.
Oh, and the dwarf fighter. Yep. That one. I almost forgot about he had the fighter level. I was trying to remember what else he had in him.
I love dwarves.
Yep.
Yeah. Then again, I played the game probably the longest out of all of us. I have too much mileage.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. Look at you creating. You pretty much you pretty much create dwarf army of badasses. I'm all about it. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, joke here right now, but
Sometimes I get away from you. Another interesting question. What would you say is your favorite monster in terms of aesthetics? And the questioner's favorite is the Imperial Angel.
Oh.
I think one of my favorite monsters that utterly, whenever I've used it, has terrified my parties has always been the Rust Monster. I always bring it in at just the right time in a dungeon or in a scenario where they're going to have to run. I always bring it in from the front so they can actually retreat. I never make it a no-win scenario. But the rust monster, no matter what variation you use of it, is fun and terrifying monster because 90% of your party has metal as their magical equipment, and the ones that don't have metal nearby, so they're terrified when it starts rushing at them.
Very much.
That one's probably my A-list monster.
I think if we're going with aesthetics, I tend to embrace the extremes of the monsters. Like the Fae are really great for aesthetics because they can be lots of different things. Like the beautiful ones are ridiculously beautiful. The ugly ones are absolutely hideous. Like the Nakalavi is just this disgusting monstrosity that has this horrifying aura around it. Similar with the Outsiders. I really like some of the fiendish ones because you can do interesting things. So because they are more supernatural, you can, like, say, you know, they have this sort of unnatural shifting quality to them. They move like something that doesn't belong in the natural world. Aberrations are also great because they can just be gross as hell.
Yeah.
What I like about aberrations is they can all be different.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
They're so mutable, so you don't have. They can be the same creature and look very different, and you're fine with that. My favorite monster in this game is not really an enemy. It's called the Carbuncle. I think it's the cutest little thing ever. It's a little lizard with a gem on its forehead that's terrified of everything. But if I had to think, you know, like all the different dragons, I'm a huge fan of some of the dragons because especially when you get to like the older ones. They just look so freaking cool. And I'm not just talking about the normal colored ones. The Umbrals, the Fairy Dragons, the River Dragons. Like, there's so many
The Mist Drake.
different dragons. Cool. Yeah, so many different... Yeah, I really like that one. There's so many different dragons and drakes, and they all look amazing.
Yeah, they definitely did a good job with that.
Yep.
Next question is, are there any clarifications you wish they would have made when they made 1E?
I can't pinpoint it right now. That would cause my brain hurt.
I think part of the problem with that question is that we've long since abandoned whatever they couldn't clarify to us.
We've gone to the point where we've been playing it just long enough that we overlook the stuff that the book has.
Well, and we just came up with our own clarifications. You know, screw them. I know for a fact there were tons of them.
By now?
But by now, we've completely ignored them all, so we don't remember.
I'm trying to think if... I think the only one that really came to mind, that can come to mind right now, was flat-footed touch and base AC was always a weird thing to me. But then again, I was when I started playing the game, I started with the old Thaco, and coming over to okay, well, you need to roll above this number to hit made the game so much simpler in a way, but it really changed how you played.
You're an abomination. I don't know how anyone could call Thaco simple.
Thaco was great. It just required a lot more pencil and paper in the beginning. That's all.
Let me do some math real quick.
Once you've done it at character creation, that was it. It was simple and you were ready.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of the ones that have irritated me the most, and one of them is time. Like, when certain things, it's not really clear on how long they take, and sometimes it's written in such a way that it's confusing. Like, I find the way that Summon Monster, the amount of time that it takes, is just the most confusingly it's confusing how they write it. And they say it takes like one round. And now...
Yeah, so when does the monster come in?
Yeah, exactly.
Does it come in at the end of my turn, or at the beginning of my next turn? Like...
That was definitely not one of their brightest.
Yeah, honestly...
moves.
I've always thought it's the end of your turn.
Yeah.
I've taken it as the monster is summoned during your turn and can act during your turn.
Yeah.
It's like kind of...
It's very...
That's how I've always done it.
So how I think it's supposed to be done is you basically forego your action and the monster comes in on your next turn and can act immediately. But that really makes it hard to use.
I've always
especially
assumed,
since. Go ahead.
based on what I read, it comes in at the end of your turn and it acts immediately after your turn. So that its place in the initiative is directly after you, but it can act as soon as your turn is over.
Mm-hmm.
Because it says it can act on the turn it comes out. But yes, it is not very clear.
Let me see if I can't get. Because I think, what was it? Round per level, distance, cast time is 1 round, and then it goes. It appears and acts immediately.
See, that's where they confuse you. They say it takes 1 round to cast, and then it appears and acts immediately.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's supposed to be immediately after your turn, they get their turn.
Well, how they do a lot of the other monsters is if they don't have an initiative, then they come in and their initiative is right after yours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to assume that that's what everything else is going off of, because I've always done it the same way that I do it now. Whereas when you casting the spell during your turn, if you've already picked your monster out, then it's summoned during your turn. It acts, basically it's acting at the end of your turn. It's basically I consider it an extension of your turn, because your turn ends when that creature's done doing its thing.
That's what I'm saying by putting it immediately after you in the initiative order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's kind of how I've always done it. So, I don't know if there's any other way you can really look into that. But, I mean, Summon Monster is a really good spell regardless. Well, the Summon Chain in general is good.
Next question is there any third-party content you'd like to see get the first party, become first party?
I dodge a lot of the third party and second party stuff because there is so much already first party content.
True.
and I tend to communicate with my group if I need to retcon something or change it out. Like if it just doesn't work.
I'm much more
We're
willing.
getting some interference. You might want to think about disconnecting and then reconnecting. We're getting some interference from you.
Sorry, I'll be back.
Anyway,
I've always felt with Pathfinder, I've always avoided third-party content like the plague. In 5e, where there's a lot less content, I find myself surprised at how willing I am to touch third-party. When with Pathfinder, I don't know, maybe it is. It's just there's so much content that it feels weird to touch third-party stuff. I mean, there is some interesting third-party things. I think a lot of the archetypes or the racial bonuses, like, it would be nice if they would give racial bonuses, or racial class, the favorite class bonuses to certain races. And a lot of the third parties have done that, and it's like, why do we not have them first party?
Yeah.
Like, you could go to the lizard folk and they have, like, none. But third party, they have every class.
Hey there, is this better?
Yeah. Well, we don't hear it now, so...
Yeah, you're sounding a little bit better.
All
The
right.
third party's tough. I think you need to be kind of careful and you need to vet it. One of the things that I've noticed sometimes happens in third parties, it becomes this kind of challenge of let's make the most broken thing we possibly can and just throw game balance out the window. I understand that as a business strategy, but I think as a DM you just need to be careful with it because you don't want some joker to show up with some third-party race, some third-party class with some weapon that's totally ridiculous. and then be like, yeah, I'm a super elf from the ethereal plane, and I'm playing the ghost artificer, and I've got this gun that shoots ghost swords.
Let me guess.
Well, you had me until you were shooting ghost swords. You had me.
That's the one part I liked.
And when they come out, they get the dancing trait.
Let me guess. When you went to the weapon shop, they ran out katanas. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think third party, I don't know. I have an aversion to using it because I have this strange belief that it's all unbalanced. And I intellectually know that's not true. Like, a lot of these have gone through quite a bit of balancing and are perfectly fine for using, but I still just like really reluctant to touch them. But I agree with some of the comments in chat that archetypes and racial kind of favorite class bonuses are my own thing, but the archetypes, like, there are some amazing archetypes that are third party, and it's kind of frustrating because I would love to play that, but well, I even to myself don't want to touch it because it's, it's third party.
There's some valid feelings as far as that too. If I may be able to throw in my little 2 cents on this, I guess for me it's much less of a can you play there too, and much more of, especially third party when everyone else may not have the access to the materials and what officially it says. It's easy for someone to, well, as D6 rightfully put it, essentially make a not quite an overly special character with special powers, but totally is a special character with special powers. And to be fair, as long as you can make it work in the campaign, it's not the worst in the world, but it's kind of one of those things where, like, if you're going to have bring in these third-party things, you're going to have to essentially make almost a court-level and intricate case for your character or what they can do. And essentially, as the immortal phrase says, cite your sources. Try to bring the material to your DM. Try to bring it to the party, and, well, at least as far as like session 0 or something like that, and kind of really lay out the case for your character. Like, well, not just in story-wise, but also like in builds. Here's materials what I'm doing for. Here's what it says here. I'm not just, fan fiction this up. Here's what you got to do. So, and then let the DM say, well, okay, maybe I can make this work in this student. We can add a little bit to the story here. Or, no, maybe you can just do something this better. And maybe on the DM side, they're going to say, no, you're going to have to make alternatives. Okay, I can't give you a ghost sword, this ghost sword here too, but I can give you one of the special enchantment which acts like a ghost blade magus or something like that. You don't have a flying ghost sword, but you have this ability that grants you a ghost sword or something like that, or something that's. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you're going to bring the characters in class as a third party. You're going to really have to show this is what they are. You're not just, oh yeah, this belongs to this, so and so's material. But meanwhile, you're going the player, and they got their fingers crossed in the back because they're just trying to sneak in and trying to smuggle some of their favorite things in here too.
Yeah,
but
that's a really good point. I think that especially if you're doing something third party, don't try and trick your DM. Be honest about, this is what I want to do. This is the build that I want. This is what you can expect the character to do. And I think that if you go that route, you're going to be more likely to at least get a compromise with your DM.
Exactly. Again, I guess in general, it's not bad to be upfront with them too. I mean, some part of presented from what I hear all around as far as like other DM stories and such is the idea of DM versus party. That's kind of backwards because, yeah, in some cases you want to throw some challenges and see what they do with it. By the same token, you're all there to tell a story together as far as that. And last thing you want is for essentially the people you're playing with essentially walk off the stage and leave you with a bad stage in that front. But yeah, I mean, to some extent I can see sort of the lack of a better word, the appeal and sort of like, oh, this kind of exotic to what we usually find as the bread and butter D&D tabletop Pathfinder sort of deal. And that's not bad to bring it in there, but A, if you're going to bring that, again, show your sources and let your DM know. And B, don't be that guy that kind of gets a little upset of, oh, I bought this artificer, this Githian artificer from the third dimension. Oh, mine's that too. Dude, you're stealing concept. No, this is pretty much a potluck, and you brought the dish for everyone to enjoy and such like that. Because now, if you're bringing it in there, it's part of the world. So don't be upset if someone else wants to try that dish too. When
that's fair.
Again, so that's a pot. Yeah. So a little rambling, but that's my feel on the subject. And also, don't be mad if you can't be mad since you bring like, I brought these wait the ladder in from this special dimension there too. Oh yeah, you know that how they have like some aboleths on that thing too? Well, I followed you over here. That's too hard. Yeah, but you're the one that brought in here. Don't be bringing stuff, third party things in here. It's not just that, but other exotic monster here too. It's like I never heard of that. We never heard of your character beforehand, but we welcomed him in. So guess what? This dimension's inclusive. Now you just have to deal with everything that entails.
We have a question in chat from Blaze King, and I think we might need a little clarification. Want to hear some great advice. New player, the GM is as much a player as the PCs. So are you talking about he's got a DM PC? I think we all
I would have to assume that that's what he's probably saying.
I think part of me thinks it's like, well, this may just be, I guess some version of optimistic, but it's, I think it's much more you're involved in the story as much as the players in there too. Granted, you don't have a character in that instance, or to some extent, hopefully you don't, as far as what quintessentially would come from a player, a DMPC as far as that, but it's like you're listening to the story as much as that, and I'm getting a little bit of a doubt that's what he meant, but if he does mean player, DMPC, I'm slightly terrified. Granted, it's not a bad way to play it, but at the same token, it's all too dangerous to go back to a special snowflake side of the forest faster than you can say let it go.
Any clarification?
Hang on. Let's see. I'm thinking about the GM is there for the enjoyment of the game. Well, I think if you're being the game master, you're trying to enjoy the game in a different way.
The
job of the game master primarily, and where you're primarily trying to get your enjoyment out of, is you're setting up scenarios for the players to overcome. You're setting up cool little puzzles that can perplex them a little bit, and you're setting up back and forth between, not monsters, but maybe the bad guy isn't a big bad, so he'll talk to the players or try to redirect them somewhere. Your enjoyment comes from your little victories, not from the killing them, but more from the, I sent the party who was supposed to be trying to capture the big bad guy with this other bad guy, so I sent them off to handle one of the big bad guy's rivals instead, and then they'll figure out they've been tricked, and maybe they'll track me back down or whatever. But the key premise behind that one is you're gonna get most of your enjoyment out of the little things you're doing to interact with the party and make the party do something that is enjoyable and memorable. That's where
I think he's offering advice, not asking for it.
I see.
So, and I agree with him, and I think one of the important things to remember as a player, especially, and I think this does come off of the third-party stuff, is that you're a guest in someone else's world when you're a player.
Mm-hmm.
And while you can shape it, and you can affect it, and you become a denizen of that world, you have to understand that it is not your world.
Mm-hmm.
And by understanding that, I think you can respect the DM's decisions in a way that you can't if you think that they're there to give you a service, because you're not there to get a service from them. If anything, it's almost the other way around, because you're helping them build the story of this world that they've created.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I would well, first of all, I'm sorry that if we've been going about this like in a slight presumptuous way, I guess speaking for myself rather, but I guess from my perspective too, it's I guess you can kind of pull hard to the whole tabletop gaming. It's just like it's communal storytelling. From the player's end, it's, the DM is built to this world, and as you rightly said, D8, you're part of this world, and you're very much a living being as far as this world and everything story has, and everything's going on, and as far as in the place where your characters' lives is a best part of the story there too, and you get to experience that. From the DM's perspective, in my opinion, it's much more you write the story, but your characters in the story have agency. They can, go along with what they do. They can do this, or they can just derail the whole thing there too. It's that's not fanciful, but it's kind of like if the page master wrote fan fiction or somebody writes fan fiction, but the character in the story doesn't write that. So it's like, oh, here's a scenario here, but then the computer continues typing as the characters give there too. I guess it's much more of a cause and effect. You gave the cause, and now you make your characters. What's the effect of that cause? And I guess as far as go ahead.
I think you've hit on one of the reasons why it's so difficult to be a GM, and I think it's because you have to cede some control to the players on something that you feel proprietary about, but you also have to put your foot down and retain control.
Exactly.
And it's very difficult to do both of those at the same time. And we've talked about this before with new GMs need to learn to go with the flow. But we're offering that advice, but we're also essentially offering the opposite advice as well. So this is a partnership, and both the player and the GM need to be willing to make compromises about this world that you guys are playing in. And that what I mean by you need to understand that this is not your world is you need to respect the fact that this is a partnership and that the GM is not there for your convenience.
Exactly. It's I guess that's the thing too. Like a lot of times around the life and everything, I hear some people like snark or even sneer at the thing of compromise. But the one thing I really love about tabletop gaming is showing that things like compromise concessions can be a good thing. I mean, sure, you have to try to make sure things are balanced and both sides respected, but the reason I really love tabletop gaming is showing that you can reach a sort of a kind of middle ground on that thing too. Not always, granted, but it's quite a beautiful thing when you're able to go like, okay, here's this world, here's what I allow. Well, quote unquote allow, but I guess much when I say allow, it's much more what fits better with the world there as far as the vision, but at the same token, it's sort of coming together on that front too as well. I mean, you can say there's pratfalls on both sides. On the pratfalls on the player side, it's okay, the DM has made this world, then we get to play in it, but all of us the main characters, and we get to turn this into our own fan fiction versus the DM and the pratfall for the sort of DM. It's like, okay, here's my thing, here's the thing, all your actors, but I'm the director. It's coming together, not trying to outdo one another. But there's also kind of temptation for either party to fall into that pratfall. So I'm not blaming one side or another solely. So for me, it's good to find that sort of counterbalance of the two. You're coming together to help write the story together, but also to create something together as a collaboration, not competition. Although if you are into that sort of thing, you're going to have to if you're into that sort of thing, you're going to have to sort of set the ground rules. Okay, you want to do this, here's something too. I won't break this rule, but here's the rules you're not going to break in that instance there too. So again, even if you are DM versus player sort of thing is your play style, then you're going to really have to sort of say, okay, we're going to box in here. Here are the rules. We're going to need someone as a referee. Let's do this. But remember, below the belt, I get to knock you out or something like that.
We also have a question from friend of the channel, Gelodrome, who's wondering if there is a better crafting class than Alchemist.
Wizard is up there.
Yeah, Wizard is really good at crafting. I think they have to be clear on what it is you want to craft. And I think that's where you find the answer to that question. If you're looking for a better crafter than at Alchemic Items, I think that Investigator is equally good at making alchemic items. But alchemic items are not the only thing you want to craft. If you're talking about crafting magic items, Wizard is really, really good at it.
Wizard's really good, especially if you go Universalist. You can replace the Hand of the Apprentice, which is just basically Mage Hand, At third level, I just get an extra feat, and it has to be an item creation or meta magic feat. The wizard gets a bunch of extra feats for crafting.
I think my favorite was rogue because you could trick certain things and trick certain qualifications into making certain items.
Oh yeah.
That one was my favorite little loophole. Was just kind of be a rogue crafter and quote unquote loophole my way through by using the ability to bypass certain effects and pretend like I'm using magic items that I don't even own.
My last argument for wizard is that certain archetypes give you craft certain different things. So like Clocksmith gives you craft construct immediately.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Instead of scribe scroll. So like if you look at wizards, I guarantee you'll find there's also the arcane discovery called Golem Constructor. I mean, it's 9th level, but it allows you to construct golems.
Yeah.
And when constructing it, you count as having all the crafting feats for it.
Yep.
So, like, the wizard, I think, was built to do the magic crafting.
The Artificer does do a really good job of it, though. But it kind of falls short when it comes to certain things.
Our next question is, what are some variant rules you like?
Well, our group kind of uses the crit fail, crit hit. Only without the crit. We don't really use the full crit fail, but we do use the full crit hit, only without these special properties. So we use half of certain variant rules, which is actually quite entertaining.
What other variants do we use?
Let's see.
It's been so long since we actually went through and read the rules.
Right?
So at this point, we're kind of just running on our memory.
Yeah, so full health when resting. That's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, screw that noise.
You guys definitely love that one. That one was so strange for me when joining the group.
It's just one of the long rests, because it's like, it's so stupid. It's so frustrating as a player to have to slow down the story in order to make the game mechanics fun.
Well, like for me, it works both ways because I've played it. I've played the hardcore way where you're rolling everything, remembering everything, and each session, if you forgot what your HP was at, then your DM can lower your HP. So, it was a good thing to remember and stuff like that. But I've also played with you guys for a while, and it's been entertaining going, all right, back to full health. So now we can do whatever it is. And it also makes it so some of the dungeons can be a lot more dangerous because we do get to full health after healing. Or sleeping, rather.
Yeah, which allows
we won't admit it.
The things to be more dangerous. Yeah. I really like 5e's hit dice. Being able to use a hit dice to heal on a short rest. I think Pathfinder is weird that it has hit dice at all, but it's only ever used to basically judge your level. So it seems silly to even have them then.
Some effects run off of hit dice.
Yeah, but normally it's only on the amount of hit dice you have.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point of making them hit dice and not just character level?
Yeah.
Like it's just for monsters so that monsters have a level. I don't know. It's weird. So I like the fact that 5th edition uses them as a healing device, and I've been known to use that in my Pathfinder games.
I think the other one we don't. Well, most parties don't use the encumbrance, but we really don't use the encumbrance. We don't use ammunition for the most part, other than specialty ammunition.
Yeah.
Again, those things just slow down the story.
Yeah, it's more.
Now, there's some parties who really like that. They like the immersion of it, but I think for us, it's more work than it is beneficial.
Heck, anything that really slows down the story, we've sped up. So crafting speeds, crafting times, building speeds, building times.
Blaze King is right. 2E did forget about hit dice.
Yeah, that's true. They did.
Yep.
They must have agreed with me that it was pointless.
They wanted to
They
take
took
as
it
much
out.
rolling as possible out of it. They're like, nah, we got a system to handle all of that.
It's so much easier if you just point and look.
I think that Pathfinder 2e, it is an interesting counterpoint to D&D 5e because it is like order versus chaos, and 5e it's like we've got all these chaotic systems. You've got advantage, you've got disadvantage. Roll this, roll that. Whereas Pathfinder 2, it's like we have a system. You get these points at this level. Am I allowed to multi-class? No, you can never
Not
multi-class unless you take the feats.
No, you can't multi-class. You can look pretty.
Is it worth it to take the feats? Not really. I was actually asked the other day to describe my problems with 2e, and the guy who was asking me gave a really good point that the descriptions I was giving were very much the same that apply to like any role-playing game. And it made me question myself whether or not my hatred for 2e is real.
Or imagined.
Or imagined. Is it just me being a stingy old, unwilling to cede to the new order kind of thing? Or did the experiences we have with it really show us a system we didn't like? And I don't know so much. I'm not sure so sure anymore.
Well, so I'll give you my feelings on it. So first off, I think that fundamentally there was a mistake made in making 2e. From the perspective of the appeal of Pathfinder is the fact that it's 3.5, but there's more stuff.
Yeah, but expanded, yeah.
Yeah, so I think fundamentally, if the people who love Pathfinder because it's 5e, it's like, bam, that's a deal breaker right there for them. So second, I think that it can feel very restrictive as a system because you are legitimately put into this path, and this is something I think could be fixed with more content. There isn't enough of a good reason to vary off of any of those paths, or even to take a different path. And I like at least the idea of what they were trying to do, where you don't have to worry about a lot of this other stuff, but like you don't have to worry about multi-classing not being that good. But I think that they did limit you, and they made things unnecessarily complicated in a lot of ways. Like, to use an example, if you want to craft an alchemic item in Pathfinder, you put 1 point in craft alchemy and you can do it. If you want to do it in Pathfinder 2, you have to be proficient in crafting and you have to have a feat for it. And then there again are all the additional rules.
Then you have to have the points to put into crafting it, because isn't there the resonance points?
No, they took resonance points out, fortunately.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
They did take that out.
But yeah, it's like you stuck a bunch of arbitrary steps on something that didn't need to be that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're living through kind of a difficult in-between period. I'm hoping for Pathfinder 3 to iron out the problems in this new system that they've made. Although, honestly, I think the playtest should have been longer than it was.
I agree.
I think we lost T3 again.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay.
Oh, well.
Well, then
back
I think
if you
that
can.
takes us to our last... Actually, no, that was the last question. What? Hang on, we got some in chat. Again, from Blaze King, do you guys use crit charts?
I've played with them before, but I think they're just too complicated.
I used to use them, but I found that most groups tend to not like if an arm gets chopped off on their characters. They love it when they get to chop the arms off of others, but
Wait a minute.
they just don't tend to.
I don't think it's necessary. I think flavor is more than enough. I don't know if that makes sense. What if I'm trying to say makes sense, but it's like the extra damage, I think, is enough to flavor it. I don't think I need to have an extra effect added.
It's kind of a neat idea, but I don't know. It is more complicated than I think it needs to be. All right, well, I think we've gone about long enough. Thank you to everyone who contributed questions either in chat or on the D6 Damage Discord, which you should join if you want to be able to join the conversation and find out about all the cool stuff that we have going on there, be it like builds or DM advice. It's a great place to find a group if you're looking for people to play with. And thank you to my fellow contributors, D12, D8, and D3. Thank you guys for joining me on this Diecast Live.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having us.
There's that beautiful mic.
Right? Now he sounds good.
You
Thanks.
finally got
It's
it.
this little guy's temperamental.
Save it for tomorrow when we get to the Carrion Crown.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully we have to find the Piper and the Spider-Man. Too sweet.
All right, well, we will
And a
see
can
you
of
all
bug
tomorrow on Carrion Crown. Goodbye.
See ya.
Later.